The Federal Equal Rights Amendment is being considered in the Illinois legislature. It's touted by its proponents as a simple amendment to the U.S. Constitution that would give equal rights to women. Sounds like a good thing, but Elise Boak with Illinois Stop ERA, you among others contend that the ERA is not what it appears to be and that it is in fact a war on women.
The Equal Rights Amendment is presently put before us really as a war on women. It's a very poorly written amendment that, because it's so vague and broad in its coverage, would actually work against women by stripping away many of the protections and benefits that they enjoy today.
Like what?
Well, first you need to understand what the amendment does. It's simply worded, equality of rights under law shall not be abridged or denied by the United States or any state on account of sex. So with that very simple but vague and broad wording, what it does is it takes the classification of gender or sex and puts it into a category where you can no longer make any distinction in your government laws or practices, or even in some of your civic government laws or civic laws and practices, that make any distinction based on gender, so even when it makes sense. So if you think about it, for example, there are times when we say, wait a minute, there is a difference between men and women. For example, many times women are the main ones who are raising the children, and as such, they need special support in that role. A prime example is a government program called WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, where they provide nutritional supplements to low-income women and their children to make sure that they have proper nutrition, access to health care. And when you read through it, it's very much tailored towards women and their children from the ages of 1 to 5. Under an ERA, you could not specifically give benefits just to women and their children, because to do so would be sexist, and you're making a distinction based on gender, and the ERA would not allow that to happen. So something that has been very beneficial to women would be struck down.
And it's my understanding also that Social Security benefits and even child support could be at risk.
Absolutely. We've seen in states that have passed the same wording as state equal rights amendments, we have seen that wording, those amendments, used against women in cases that involved alimony, child support, a husband's responsibility to pay for his wife's medical needs. Those were all struck down, and the women suffered as a result in court cases. The Social Security benefits, the feminists have made it very clear that they feel that Social Security benefits for women who stay home and raise their children, they would be struck, because the feminists feel that these benefits violate the equality principle by encouraging women to be dependent. And so they would strike those. Today, we don't have that awareness. People are back to just thinking, hey, I believe in equal rights. This is for equal rights. Why wouldn't I support this? They don't realize the harmful impact that's connected with it.
Well, a number of states have passed the Equal Rights Amendment. What are the results there?
There are 18 states who have state ERAs with similar wording, and we have seen in the 30 years since they passed these ERAs in their different states many harmful impacts on women. As I mentioned, the language of these amendments has been used against women in alimony, child support, husband support for medical necessities. It's also been used in Pennsylvania recently. They used it to disapprove the practice of providing women with lower automobile insurance rates than for men. Now, we all know that most women are safer drivers than men.
Well, that's up for debate, but...
Okay, we could argue about that, but most women are safer. You're going to see some outliers. And the insurance industry recognizes that statistic. It's a strong enough statistic that they have offered lower insurance rates to women. But somebody took this up in Pennsylvania and said, this is in violation of our ERA. You are making a distinction based on gender, and our ERA does not allow that. They took it before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you're right. You can't have this. And so they went back to the Legislative Assembly in Pennsylvania, and they said, it makes sense statistically to let women have lower rates if they've got a better driving record. So they passed a law that said we're going to allow this exception. Went to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, based on our ERA, this law is unconstitutional and cannot stand. So even when it made sense to make that distinction, they couldn't. Another case that took place in Massachusetts was in the prison system. They had a system in place where there was a harsher discipline system on the male inmate side than on the female inmate side, because they said the male inmates were more violent than the female inmates, and so they had to have a different system on that side. A male inmate contested that, and under their state ERA won, because again, you can't make a distinction based on gender. So now the female prison inmates in Massachusetts have to be subjected to an equally harsh prison discipline, even though they don't merit it.
What will the implications of passing the ERA have on, let's say, homosexual rights and transgender rights?
Well, you can't make any distinction based on gender under an ERA, so therefore you cannot say marriage is between a man and a woman, because man and woman are gender terms. This was recognized in the state of Hawaii, which also had a state ERA. They had their traditional marriage law overturned by the Supreme Court because it violated their ERA. The people they gave them a year to then pass another amendment to support that definition, but we have since seen in numerous other states that their state ERAs have been used in part in overturning state traditional marriage statutes. In reference to transgender issues, again, you cannot make any distinction based on gender, so you cannot say this is a boy's bathroom, this is a girl's bathroom, this is a boy's locker room or a girl's locker room. We would have to become gender neutral in all practices. I don't think many people are comfortable with that.
There are also some strong ties between the Equal Rights Amendment and abortion.
There are, absolutely. In fact, in the state of New Mexico, which has a state ERA, their state Supreme Court ruled that because abortion is unique to women, to restrict abortion and withhold taxpayer funding for elective abortions is a form of gender discrimination. And so in New Mexico, taxpayers must fund elective abortions.
What needs to happen to stop the Equal Rights Amendment from being ratified here in Illinois?
People need to immediately contact their state representatives and let them know that they are opposed to passage of the Equal Rights Amendment as it currently stands. Those people who are for equal rights for women, I agree with them. I think we're all for equal rights for women, but there are many laws already in place that guarantee those rights, including the 14th Amendment, which promises equal protection of rights for all citizens. But if you want to see something more done with equal rights for women, write a new amendment that's got better language. But in the meantime, this amendment is bad for us. It harms women. It's a war on women. It harms our families and our society. So call your state representative, let them know that you are opposed to passage of the Equal Rights Amendment, the federal Equal Rights Amendment.
Elise Boak with Illinois Stop ERA, thank you for joining us. And if people would like to get in contact with your organization, what should they do?
I'll tell them to contact me personally because I love to talk with them. My email address is ebouc7@gmail.com, or they can give me a call at 847-438-5044. They can also reach out to the Illinois Family Institute, who is doing a tremendous job at helping to protect women and support women in our rights. Or they can reach out to Eagle Forum. There's many organizations that they can reach out to.
All right, Elise, thank you for doing this interview and for the kind plug for Illinois Family Institute. For IllinoisFamily.org News, I'm Monty Larrick.
This has been brought to you by the Illinois Family Institute. promoting marriage, family, life, and liberty in the land of Lincoln.
For more information, go to illinoisfamily.org.